So today I want to talk about WrestleMania 39 because I went to night one, did not go to night two, only went to night one of WrestleMania. And when I posted about it on Twitter, someone said that I should make a video giving my thoughts on WrestleMania, on my experience. And I don't know what my opinion is worth when it comes to this topic because I am not an avid watcher or follower of professional wrestling. I maybe watch it on occasion. I mainly follow it from afar. I don't really think, aside from having maybe AEW or WWE on in the background on rare occasions, I have not really watched anything since the COVID lockdowns. Before that, I would occasionally watch a WWE pay-per-view here or there. So I have no clue. I went into this having no clue what the storylines were. I had no clue who a lot of these wrestlers were. Like, I know that Roman Reigns, I know he's like the main guy. I know that the bloodline is a thing. I know that Seth Rollins is one of their bigger stars. I know that the women's division has been growing and developing a lot over the years and has become legitimate. I knew of Charlotte Flair going in. But when deciding which night I wanted to go to, I was, a reason. Some of you guys might be asking, why even go to WrestleMania if I'm not really an avid follower? Well, for those who don't know, WrestleMania, it's like the Super Bowl of professional wrestling. It's like their biggest event of the year. This is when they have all the best matches. They usually have celebrities show up. It's usually a big spectacle, as it was this year. And I've always wanted to maybe go to a WrestleMania. And I'd also recommend, if you're a fan of professional wrestling, if you're a casual fan, and if you ever get the chance to go to a WrestleMania, if WrestleMania is ever comes to your area and you have the money to spend, I highly recommend you experience WrestleMania. It's a blast. I had a lot of fun going to WrestleMania. I had a lot of fun. It was a really fun show the first night. I ended up watching the second night from home, and I'm really glad I went to the first night because I think the first night was better. But when trying to decide on a night, another reason why I wanted to go was because a couple years ago, when The Undertaker announced that he was retiring, I remember there was a lot was made out of it because The Undertaker was like one of the few wrestlers that never really did interviews. He kept out of the public eye to maintain character. And after he retired, he started going on shows like Joe Rogan and doing interviews and opening up and breaking what is called kayfabe and being honest about his career and everything like that. I remember there were a lot of podcasts discussing his retirement, a lot of specials and documentaries. And when all this happened, I started to think to myself, I'm like, man, I never got to watch The Undertaker wrestle in person. And I started to realize there were a lot of wrestlers. So I grew up a big wrestling fan from like 1993 to 2002. Around 2002 is when I started to slowly lose interest in professional wrestling. And like I said, ever since then, I've only been following here and there. I get into it a little bit at times. Like I remember I got into it for a few weeks when I found out Degeneration was back around 2009. But I remember when The Undertaker was retiring, I realized I never got to see The Undertaker wrestle in person. I never got to see a lot of other guys like Shawn Michaels wrestle in person. And I wish I would have. I wish I would have made an effort to see a lot of these legends do their thing in person. So when I found out that WrestleMania was in Los Angeles this year, I was like, maybe I should think about going. Let's see if there's anyone I know and want to see. And it turned out on the first night, John Cena was wrestling. I was like, well, I've never seen John Cena wrestle before. Rey Mysterio Jr. was wrestling, probably the greatest acrobatic wrestler of all time. He was booked for night one. It was not really decided yet until I think a few days before that the Hell in the Cell match featuring Edge That wasn't really scheduled on night 1 or night 2, but I was hoping to see that. It eventually got scheduled for night 2. But also the Seth Rollins Logan Paul match looked like a lot of fun. I knew that was scheduled for night 1, so I chose night 1. And those were some pretty good matches. The John Cena match was first. I got really geeked when he came out to his music, and it was a pretty good match. Not the best match, but it was pretty good. I'm glad I got to see John Cena perform live. By the way, I was sitting on the floor about 30 rows from the ring. And I imagine wherever you sit, especially at a WrestleMania where it's usually in like a big football stadium, you're probably going to be making compromises. Your view is probably going to be obstructed to a certain extent, unless you sit a little too far away, like in the nosebleed sections. But where I was sitting, like you could really, I was really close to the stage and the ramp leading to the ring. And, I was close enough to where if I had a football, I could hit any one of these WWE superstars as they were walking down the ramp. So I was close to the stage and the ramp, which was huge. That's another thing about WrestleMania. It's just a big spectacle, and it's one of those things like you really got to be there to appreciate just how massive everything is, how impressive a lot of the production is. There was a lot of fireworks throughout the show. It was a lot of fun, a lot of exciting stuff. But when I was watching the ring, like you could really, from my perspective, you could only see stuff from maybe the bottom rope up. It was probably more like the middle rope up. So like you couldn't, like if someone was lying on the mat, you really couldn't see it. Especially if they went outside the ring, you couldn't really tell what was going on. You constantly had to look up at the big screen to get a better look at things. But still had a lot of fun. So, I wanted to see the John Cena match. It was pretty good. All of the matches were pretty good. Didn't really have a problem with any of the matches, except for the impromptu match between The Miz and, what's his name? Pat McAfee. That was an okay match. I didn't hate it. But the two matches that I probably had the least interest in seeing that ended up really, I think, stealing the show, and I think they were by far the two best matches of the evening, were the match that I'm showing right here in the graphic, the match between Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley. That might have been my favorite match of the entire evening, the match for the SmackDown Women's Championship. And what was interesting about this, I don't know if you can really gather this by watching this on TV, and maybe it was just the section I was at, but the match before this was the Rey Mysterio Dominic Mysterio match. It was a legitimate father versus son match. Like Rey Mysterio was really fighting he was really wrestling his real life son at WrestleMania. And the storyline was they were a tag team. They were getting along great. And then Dominic Mysterio got turned to the dark side by this Rhea Ripley character, who I think is his storyline girlfriend. She turned him against his dad, and then Dominic Mysterio became this punk kid who was spoiled, and maybe not spoiled, but ungrateful little shit, calling his dad a deadbeat, throwing water in his sister's face while she sat at ringside. So that's what got his dad, Rey Mysterio, to wrestle him. And everyone in the stadium was against Dominic Mysterio. Everyone wanted to see Rey Mysterio whoop his punk kid's ass at WrestleMania, which he did. Okay. Why is this confusing? Well, because the next match featured Rhea Ripley, who played a huge role in turning Dominic Mysterio into a punk kid bad guy. A lot of the people in my section were cheering for Rhea Ripley in the next match. And just like from a storyline perspective, this was a very interesting match because Charlotte Flair, for those who don't know, she's the daughter of Ric Flair, who's a legend in professional wrestling, arguably the greatest professional wrestler of all time. And, she's been on top of the game for years. I think they said she was a 10-time world champion. This is I think they said it was like her 7th WrestleMania or something. Anyway, she's always been the best. She's pretty. She was wearing a crown. She's the queen. It was kind of like a classic, like, oh, pretty princess versus like the reject metal goth girl in Rhea Ripley. And, you know, they were showing the highlight package of, like, the storyline, and, like, that's Charlotte Flair. She's trying to add to her legacy as the greatest ever or whatever, trying to live up to the legacy of her dad, you know, keeping the championship at WrestleMania. And then you have Rhea Ripley, who's kind of this scrappy wrestler who's never really got her due. She had to claw her way back to the top by setting a record in the recent Royal Rumble. So there was like a part of me that wanted to cheer for Rhea Ripley, although I'm confused in retrospect because she turned Dominic Mysterio against her dad. I don't know. I'm still confused over it, but it was explained to me. I texted my friend who pays more attention to this stuff. I was like, can you explain this? He's like, yeah, everyone just hates Charlotte Flair. Everyone's tired of her, and everyone wants to see her get her ass whooped. So why was this a good match? Both the wrestlers were really great in the ring. Both of them were great in the ring with their maneuvers and their technical wrestling skills. But what really impressed me was their selling. Like the expressions on their face were, they both did a really good job of telling a story, conveying emotion. And it was just overall a magnificent wrestling match. Might have been the best match of the evening, and it got me really into it. I had zero interest in this match coming in, had zero clue what was going on, never even heard of this Rhea Ripley character before, and during and afterward, I got really excited, really into the match. Might have been the best match of the evening, besides the match that followed it, which was the match between the tag team of the Usos and the makeshift tag team of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. I had heard of Kevin Owens before, never heard of Sami Zayn, don't know much about the Usos. I know they're part of the Bloodline and the Bloodline wrestlers. They're part of the Anoi, however you say it, family. They're basically the most successful family in professional wrestling, unless you want to count the McMahons. But like this family, for those who don't know, like The Rock is part of this family. Yokozuna is part of this family. The Wild Samoans were part of this family. Rosie and Jamal were part of this family. Who else is part of it? Roman Reigns. So it's a very rich family. The Head Shrinkers, they were another tag team. I'm probably missing a few wrestlers, and if I am, I'm sorry. I mean, no disrespect, but I had a good feeling. I'm like, if the Usos are involved, if they're part of the Anoi wrestling family, they're probably the real deal. And I know Kevin Owens wrestled Stone Cold last year, but other than that, I don't know much about him. The storyline with that was that Sami Zayn was looking for support, looking for friends, because I guess the locker room, everyone else had turned their back on him, so he turned to the Bloodline, and they reluctantly embraced him. But in exchange for embracing the Bloodline, Sami Zayn had to burn his bridge with his friend Kevin Owens, which he did. But then it came to a point where the Bloodline was being a little too rough with Kevin Owens after a match, and Sami Zayn interfered and said, okay, you guys are going too far. And then the Bloodline turned on Sami Zayn, and then Sami Zayn had to go crawling back to Kevin Owens, who reluctantly agreed to team up with him to wrestle the Usos at WrestleMania for the Unified Tag Team Championships. And in that match, great match. All the wrestlers in this match were phenomenal, especially Sami Zayn. Like the expressions on his face, especially, I think toward the end, were really good at selling, telling a story. You could tell that this really meant a lot to him, going back to the previous match with Flair and Ripley. They were really good at telling a story. Like you really believe that the match meant a lot to them, that they both really wanted this match. Like Charlotte Flair wanted to maintain her legacy, wanted to make a name for herself. Rhea Ripley was trying to prove herself as being one of the top stars in the business. Same thing with this tag team match. Ended up being a really good match. I ended up getting us sucked into all the excitement and the story behind it. The Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn ended up prevailing. The crowd went bananas, and it was a really feel-good moment. So it ended up being a really good night for WrestleMania, really good first night. I ended up watching the second night. The second night ended up being pretty good. The Hell in a Cell match was pretty good. The main event I thought was magnificent between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. I liked the match. I really liked the main event between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. I did not like how it ended. I did not mind that Roman Reigns ended up winning the match. A lot of people are upset with that alone. The fact that Roman Reigns, for those who don't know, he's like on a 900 plus day title reign, which is unheard of. Like, I think they mentioned during WrestleMania, only 4 other people throughout the last 40, 50 years have had a reign longer than Roman Reigns' current reign. I didn't mind that Roman Reigns won, but I just thought the end of the match was kind of lame. Like his relative or whatever, one of his bloodline brothers, after getting barred from ringside, reappeared from the crowd and got a cheap shot in on Cody Rhodes, which set up Roman Reigns for a spear. Before that, it was a magnificent match. I would have been fine with Cody Rhodes losing either way. I was kind of expecting Roman Reigns to win anyway. I understand why a lot of people wanted to see Cody Rhodes win. He put up a hell of a match. He was great in that match. I think he really shined in that match. Anyway, those are my thoughts on WrestleMania. I know that I don't really talk about professional wrestling a lot on my channel. I don't know how many of you guys care about wrestling, much less my opinion on wrestling, but those are my thoughts. What did you guys think of WrestleMania? Did you watch WrestleMania? Did you enjoy WrestleMania? Why don't you let me know in the comment section down below?